Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, and thank you for coming to this very special webinar. This is kind of a new energy that is being shared in this webinar, and I played that video before we started so that those of you who could get here early, and I know that it of course won't be everybody, would be able to get a taste of the energy that we are sharing today, and actually sharing a way of making this real, making what Mother Earth, Gaia, was speaking about in that video, making it real, tangible, and part of our economy. So not just part of our imagination, not just part of our personal experience or our inner spiritual experience, but part of our mainstream, the way we do things on this planet. And we can see very clearly, and we've known for a long time, that we do need to transform the way we organize ourselves on this planet, because we can see the amount of suffering that is created simply by the organizational systems we have at the moment. It's not easy to create new systems in the middle of old systems that are becoming too old, that they're breaking down, but they're still functioning. They're still largely the way we run our life. But if we don't have the courage to create the new systems right in the middle of it all, it's like flattening the seedlings that grow up beneath the trees that are going to fall down. Those seedlings grow up and they become the new trees. Sometimes new plants come up that weren't in the place of the old tree before. It's not always the same type of tree that gets replaced. That's what happens in nature. And that's what I feel is extremely important for us now. We've had a whole year of having to go inwards, reflecting, looking at what we value in a quieter way. This year, 2021, for me is not a year for that anymore. It's a year for doing the things that need to be done to be building a better future. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today. Those of you who came to a webinar I ran last year about love to be well, this is things getting a whole lot more serious. Serious isn't quite the right word, because it's actually very beautiful, but certainly much more advanced from where we were, where I first introduced love to be well. I think that was back in October last year. So this is kind of the next iteration of that. What we're going to do today is I'm going to introduce you to some ways of thinking about your own life that can transfer to a bigger, wider system. And then I'll talk a little bit about that bigger, wider system, and I'll introduce my friend and colleague, Tim Bennett. Will explain a little bit later. I'll talk a little bit about Love To, which is a system. It's a model for doing business that is a win-win-win model, genuinely. So we'll talk a little bit about that. At the end, I'm going to talk about a course, a short course that I'm going to introduce. I'm not going to say anything about it now. And I expect that all of that part will take about an hour, as I explained in the original email. And there may well be a whole lot of questions. So I'm going to allow the time to overrun the hour if we have lots of questions, and we will answer the questions, because if you're interested in them and you have to leave on the hour, they will be in the recording, which we'll share with you afterwards. So you'll be able to catch all of that anyway. So the core content will be within the hour, and the Q&A may overrun. And so feel free to just drop out at the point that you have to, and we'll send you the recording later. Okay, that's the kind of housekeeping stuff. We're all used enough to being on Zoom now to have good Zoom behavior. Please keep yourself muted when you're not speaking. All right, we're going to start off with a bit of an exercise, a little bit of a reflective, contemplative exercise to bring you, first of all, into your own space and your energy field, to connect us all together and to start us off with the topic of today, which is how do we protect and enhance our most precious life assets in highly unpredictable times. Now, the topic came up because there is a lot of financial insecurity at the moment. There's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen with the economy as a result of what's happened over the last year. And whilst there are signs on the surface, you know, people are trying to make out like everything's fine, it's clearly not fine. Beneath the surface, it is a difficult time for many people. It's been a terrible time for many businesses, and of course businesses affect people in so many ways. So it's very unpredictable, and it's not really helpful to just feel afraid, as I'm sure you know. So we need to have a strategy for facing this level of financial and other unpredictability that enables us to be stable, to be forward-looking, to be creative, and contributing in the best way that we can, because that makes us feel good as human beings, and it's also good for the collective, for all of us. So let's close our eyes and sit quietly for a minute or two. And let the weight of your body drop down into your chair and down into the ground. Down into earth. And deep down towards the center of earth. So you can feel yourself connected, deeply connected with the energy and the consciousness of our planet. Really, not just our home, but what we are a part of. We are Earth, cells like cells of Earth. We are nature, cells of nature. We're not separate, we're a part of all of it. And allow yourself also to open up to your higher self, which you are also a part of, or it's a part of you. And to all the more expanded systems of support and energy and love and guidance and inspiration that we draw on as human beings may be different for each of you. So you're deeply connected into the ground. And into the heavens, a part of all of it. And let's ask ourselves, deep in our heart, what are really your most precious life assets? What is it that you value most of all in your life? What is it that gives you quality of life, a rich, beautiful experience of being alive on this planet at this time. And let it arise. Just let it pop in. Maybe pictures or words or a sense of what you most value, what's most precious to you. What are you most grateful for in your life? What do you most appreciate? Feel and sense into the preciousness, the deep value that is held within your life experience. Give yourself a moment to relish the richness that exists in your life, the true wealth. Okay, and we're going to gently bring this to an end. It would be nice to explore further, and that's something that you can do on your own. Take some time to appreciate what is in your life. And I'd like to invite you to share in the chat maybe one or two of the things that came up for you that you recognize that you most value in your life experience. Be interesting to see what's on the list. So just write it in the chat. And have a look at what other people are writing. Isn't that interesting? Wow. So we can see so clearly from this what's important. We all know what's important. And yet, if you think about the way we run our life and the way we run our economy as well, it's not really based on all of that stuff. I was in a conversation recently with a guy called David Martin, very interesting guy who's become somewhat known over the last year, perhaps more known than he was before, because he's shared a lot of information about some of the things that have been going on behind the COVID situation. Um, but what he's really passionate about is money and the economy, and he's studied it in great depth, the history of money. And one of the things that he explained was that money has always been predicated, at least in that kind of our modern Western conception of money, is predicated on when we're going to die, when we're expected to die. And we talked about how so often things only have value when they're dead. If you think about a tree, it has most value when it's been turned into a plank or pulp and can be turned into a building or paper or something else. Many plants only really have value when they become edible, when we can eat them, so we kill them so that we can eat them. Now, there's obviously nothing wrong with doing that. We have to eat, and plants are there for us to eat. But it's so interesting that in so many ways the gifts of nature, this is what he pointed out, and I'd never thought of it this way before, the gifts of nature are considered to be free, and it's only when we extract them that and then add value to them that they have value. And the intrinsic value we haven't recognized very well, and that is an underlying reason why we've ended up with an economy that doesn't really support life. And that becomes very warped if you go into it. If you want to learn a bit more about that, there's a YouTube video he made called American Revolution. It's very American focused, but it does talk all about the history of money and the economy in an extremely intelligent, very well researched way. It's pretty interesting. So what we're looking at here, if I look at your list, I would say that everything that you're talking about there is a quality of life. It's not really a quality that's caused by killing and destroying things and exploiting things. You don't exploit people to feel love for them. You don't exploit your family so that you can have a strong connection with them. You do exactly the opposite. And so that's the shift that we are looking at, and that is the shift that we need to make, is to be able to operate in a system that is based fundamentally on love, which is after all what we're all about. And that's what the video that I played before the beginning really was talking about. Now, the interesting thing is people say, well, how do you value things like that? How do you value relationships? How do you value your health and well-being? How do you value the care that you give to your children or to your elderly parents or all those other things that you wrote about? How do we value nature? And I think we've really ducked out of that, and many of us have taken a spiritual route and said, oh, well, those things are priceless, so I'll keep them separate, and the value stuff that I deal with is in the money world will be the stuff that I don't value so much, actually. That's quite weird if you think about it. And so we've separated ourselves, and we've said the things that are really valuable are they're important, and if we bring them into money, we corrupt them. Or if we bring money into that, it becomes a kind of corrupting system. Now, anyone who's read my book, Love Money, Money Loves You, will know that that's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of money. I'm not going to talk about that now. But the interesting thing is, although we can easily think they're not very easy to value, actually, there are systems for valuing them, and they may not be perfect, but there are systems that we can use to actually value nature, human health and well-being, and other things like that. And I'm going to explain those very briefly because they're important to understand for where we're going. There is a group of scientists in Australia actually called the Wentworth Group of Concerned Scientists, and they've put together a system called Accounting for Nature. And basically a perfect set of accounts, so to speak, is pristine nature, pristine wilderness. And a very poor set of accounts is obviously a very damaged environment. And they've created a system where you can actually go and measure change, you can measure improvement in an ecosystem and give it a set of accounts like you can give a business that a value can be placed on, so that we can make decisions about how we treat, how we care for land, how we work with the land, and we can actually increase the value on this accounting for nature system, which is different from just increasing the value on the current accounting systems, which are about profit and loss and balance sheets and things like that. So that's there is a way that is actually being used, starting to be used, called accounting for nature. Interestingly, if you want to look at health and well-being, because that's obviously something extremely precious, extremely valuable, governments, all governments, actually put a value on health and well-being. They have to, because they have to make decisions about things like what drug treatments they can afford or they can't afford. So I'm going to give you a number now. If you're in America, 1 year of your life, your healthy life, is considered to be worth approximately $50,000. Now, there are some places, there are some systems where that could be increased to maybe $300,000. There's a range. But that's how your government and your life insurance systems actually think about the value of your life. If you're dead, your value is zero. If you're totally healthy, it's somewhere in that range. But notionally, it's actually around $50,000. So that's an interesting thought. It's a little bit uncomfortable, because it's like, am I really worth that? What am I really worth? But the point is that if we want to value life, we actually do have to make an attempt at it, and not just say, well, these things are so precious, they have no value, and go on being totally underpaid and undervalued for doing the most valuable things on the planet. So we've got to actually make an attempt at doing this, okay? And so what I would like to do is talk to you a little bit about a new model, which we call Love To, which is clearly about doing what you love to do. It's actually about being able to be valued for doing what you love to do. To talk a little bit about Love To and how that can apply to the kinds of things that you're writing about actually in the chat, and then introduce where Love To is going and how you can be involved in it. So, first of all, I'd like to introduce Tim Bennett, who is, along with me, co-founder of Love To. Tim, would you like to just tell everybody a little bit about who you are and where you've come from? A little of the story of your life, the personal story of your life that has led to Love To.
Right. Well, thanks, Sarah. Thanks very much. And it's a pleasure to have you all here. Some of you might have heard us speak a little bit, but as you can probably tell, I'm from Australia. It's just gone 6 a.m. down here. So my background is I'm trained as an agricultural scientist. Growing up in Australia, we thought agriculture was a pretty important industry, but I was pretty quickly dismayed at the destruction that happens under conventional agricultural systems. You know, the natural systems are really not appreciated, and really the agricultural land is mined for its usefulness. So my career turned pretty quickly to organics and sustainable farming systems. And now for 30 odd years, I've been working in that area, from developing more sustainable large-scale agricultural systems to actually developing large-scale farms that look after the water and the land and the soil, and take back, animal manures and use that to fertilize the soil. So, good, healthy, wholesome agricultural systems, and trying to improve the mainstream has been my area. And I've done that all the way through to taking a concept to creating a public company, listing it in London on the London Stock Exchange AIM market, running that as a CEO through a lot of stress and a callus on my head from dealing with all the financial institutions and the challenges of contracts and big money. Having done all that and gone through a GFC in 2008, and having been involved in a combination of financial services and company development and ecological assets and agricultural assets, I came back to Australia in 2010, and I was quite determined to start making a difference from a community side, from the place where people are, rather from the place where corporations or money is. I think a lot of us don't appreciate that how important us as individuals are when we contribute to something that is aggregated. And in fact, there's a huge synergy that happens, in my experience, when we start to do that. So I started working with Sarah just a little over 4 years ago. We co-founded Love2 as a group of companies. And our original idea, partly because of my background, was to have a target of feeding 1 billion people every day with an ecological and a social benefit. So we're always aiming for quite a large scale impact. Over the last 4 years, we've been developing the ways to implement and measure that system. And now we're at a point where, personally, I'm finding it's a really exciting opportunity. We've found a way to not only to use the accounting for nature system that Sarah was talking about to measure the ecological improvements that people can help make to a piece of land. But, from my own point of view, I'm meeting some people who are very passionate and committed to continuing to produce food, but in a healthier and healthier way, energized food. And they really care about the well-being of communities. And they really care about the well-being of their soil and their environment. They care about their own health and other people's health. And it's an old paradigm and a new paradigm coming together. We're now able to use the financial systems in the world to start to create quite innovative new structures that allow us to do much better with the natural resources that we have, and to reward the people that are doing that. And so that's my real interest is, I've been exploring in this area for a long time, and, I love to go and walk on the beach and swim in the sea and be in the rainforest, be in the bush, and, feel the energy of all of that. And of course, family and friends and health and well-being is very important to me. And so, personally, I allocate a lot of time and energy to looking after those things. And more every day, family, all the things that appeared in the chat, I was thinking, yeah, all of those. We all feel much the same, I think, about this, the importance of things that we appreciate are the most important things in our lives. And as we do personal work, personal effort to maintain and look after those, we create huge benefits for ourselves and our families and our communities. So that's what I'm excited about. I think that's really a big part of our future.
Thank you, Tim. I'd actually like to tell a little story of what happened when Tim and I first met, because it kind of explains quite a lot, I think. So Tim and I both joined a mastermind group in January 4 years ago, and we were asked to introduce ourselves by video. And so Tim made this brilliant video. It was getting dark. He was sitting on the beach, and it was all about climate change and the fact that there was this massive amount of money that is supposed to be invested in improving the environment, improving human health and well-being, or human well-being, quality of life. So both our natural quality of life and our human quality of life. There's a huge amount of money, trillions of dollars, that is supposed to be invested into that. And it wasn't happening. And I heard it. I watched his video and I thought, wow, this guy's really thinking big. I mean, lots of people who say I think big, but he felt kind of more grounded than most of them. Like, he was thinking big, but it seemed like there was something behind it. And he was also thinking big and including money in it, which most people don't. They want to think big, but they don't want to talk about money. But I felt that the whole notion of dealing with climate that way that he was implying wasn't going to work, because I'd spent 25-30 years in the world of healing, and I know how systems heal. I know how human beings heal, and any system heals, because I've just done so much of it. And when we put our energy into he was talking about reducing the temperature of Earth, and I was thinking, in healing, if somebody has a temperature, that's a healing response. That's not, you don't go out of your way to reduce the temperature. You let the temperature do what it needs to do, because it's part of the healing. And so I wrote him this long message all about healing and how healing works. And if we want to make a difference in climate change, we need to do it on the fundamental natural processes of healing. not on this kind of very linear way of thinking, oh, this is wrong, let's change that. So let's reduce the temperature here, and then let's increase the nitrogen there, and then let's do this thing there. And then we start tweaking little bits of the system without taking the whole thing and without understanding the fundamental principles of nature. So this was this kind of weird combination of me, who's completely in the world of healing and coaching, and then Tim, who's been in the world of agriculture and finance. And we had this amazing meeting, and started to talk. And Tim read my book, Love Money, Money Loves You. And my picture of the story is, this is how he describes it. He was listening to an audio book, reading another book. And during that period, he was walking along the beach and he got this huge download of a business called Love To. And that's really the inception point of what we're talking about now, which is we're getting very close now to actually launching it so that it becomes real. So let's talk a little bit about how we can actually protect and enhance these precious things. Because whilst I understand the discomfort around putting value on them, if we don't have the courage to do that, we will continue to value destroying things, extracting things. We will not have a system for valuing what's valuable. So it's not going to be perfect. Whatever we do is not going to be perfect, but is it going in the right direction? That is the thing that I think we need to ask ourselves. Would it be of value if people who do good in the world, who genuinely make the world a better place and improve quality of life here, could be better rewarded than they are? I think that is the fundamental question. And can we create a system, at least start a system, that can be improved over time, but at least gets us walking in that direction? Because most people, what we've discovered, this is a very remarkable thing we didn't know, most people haven't really figured out actually how to do that. They haven't figured out a system. So Tim, would you like to talk a little bit about how can we actually protect and enhance the value of
Sure.
these very precious assets, and maybe explain a little bit why we even use the word asset there?
Sure. Okay. Well, I think the principal thing is if you can understand that we all do things that we love to do. We look after our health of ourselves and our family. We might be engaged in a ecological restoration project, or um, be volunteers for a certain project that you care about. And none of us really expect to be paid for those things, but we recognize that those things generate a benefit for ourselves and for our family and even our community. And in some cases, they generate a benefit for the world community, where we're doing things about restoring rainforests and cleaning the air and cleaning the water. And all those things matter in the long term. So that creates a benefit. And we've just, until now, accepted that's great. We did a good thing. Aren't we terrific? We created a benefit that's helpful for the quality of our life. But if you think about, being in your workplace, you're creating a benefit by creating a product that someone wants to buy and use. And, that's a benefit for the company and you get paid for doing that. It seemed to me when I was thinking about this that we really should be getting some sort of remuneration, some sort of recognition for the benefits that we're generating. And so what we're looking at is not looking at the actual physical asset. We're not looking for anyone to buy or sell a piece of land with more trees on it. We're not looking to offset someone's bad behavior for someone's good behavior and kind of have the two equal out. We're just recognizing that people are already doing things that are good for themselves and the planet. And more of that could be done, especially if they were recognized and remunerated for it. So what we're really doing is having people consider that the product of their beneficial personal effort is something that we can measure, and that is something that we can put a value on. Now, if I was only doing that myself and Sarah was only doing that herself, and we had a tiny little piece of some sort of valuable asset to sell, it wouldn't really work. But by aggregating a lot of people together, And by combining the benefits that they generate, we can make a really big pool of these benefits, and we can set them up so that they work like a share from a company that institutional investors can buy. Now, as Sarah was saying before, that's great news for institutional investors because they've got this great weight of money and an obligation to invest it in this sector. And they can't because there's not enough big deals. It's sort of like if you imagine that you had $100 to invest, and the only deals you'd like to be able to buy, a couple of deals for $50 or 3 deals for $33 each. But actually, all you can buy is 5-cent deals, and you need to have 2,000 of them to spend $100. And you've got to look after each 5-cent project, and you've got to report on it and measure it. It's just all too hard to do for one person, one individual investment organization. And we actually need a system that meets the need and matches the scale. So the exciting thing about what we're doing here is by being able to measure the benefits that you generate yourself, and by joining you with a group of like-minded people who share your values in a mutual company, we can then sell the product, the benefit of your time and your energy and your effort and your conscious intention to investors who recognize that that's actually doing good for the world. And they also recognize that they're getting an asset and they're getting a dividend because of the way we've structured the company. So the beautiful
Tim,
thing
there's
about this,
something I just want to drop in there. It's a really
yeah,
interesting idea because it's one of the things that we can do this with is health and well-being. When you improve your health and well-being, there's a value to that, obviously. There's actually a value to the community, not only to yourself in having
right,
better health and well-being. The really interesting thing about this idea is we can put together lots and lots and lots of people's health and well-being, which has tremendous value, and turn that into shares that those large institutions can buy. But it doesn't take your health and well-being away from you. They're not
no,
buying your health and well-being. They're just, it's like they're investing in the work the work or the effort that you put in to maintain your health and well-being, or that people put in to maintain and improve ecosystems, but they never actually get to own that thing. So
that's right.
that's very important to understand, because sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want somebody else to own me or my health and well-being. That's the beauty of it. They don't need to do that. They don't actually
If
own anything, but it's a recognition of the value of what we're all doing.
hmm, if you're baking and selling cakes, um, you would sell the cake to a person who was willing to buy it at your market stall, and it's really no different to that. What you're doing is putting effort in to generate a product that is something from your commitment and your know-how and your energy and your values. You're really expressing the things you care about in a way that makes a difference to the world. And this gives us the opportunity to be able to receive some appreciation in a tangible way for that effort. And that's exciting to me because we're all aware that the world is changing in terms of its financial systems and in terms of what sort of work we do now, what we'll be able to do in the future. There's all sorts of talk about AI and robots, and I think what we've been really motivated, and Sarah and I have had a lot of time thinking about this, is, well, what is the work of real human? What is the humanness in this? How do humans become more fully evolved and more part of our natural environment? And how do we become one with our ecosystem more and more in a way that machines just cannot do? They're not part of it in the same way. So we're really looking at things that people can do that allow them to be rewarded for that, start to provide an alternative income for them that really aligns with what they care about. So many people spend a lot of their time, 5 days a week, in work that they don't care about, they don't like, or they don't really want to do. And this is really exciting from my perspective, because through Love To's system, you can earn a substantial proportion of your income by participating and doing things that you really care about, that you really love. That's why we call it Love To. It's what people love to do. And that sort of effort is so satisfying in so many ways. And then if you're also remunerated for it, then that's a great way to start to spend more of your time. So that's a bit where we're coming from. Um, the ability to measure it and aggregate it, all the technical stuff. I mean, we've got huge, long, 40-page long documents that explain in great detail how all of that works. And if you're interested in financial services and how sustainable asset markets work and everything, we can explain all of that too. But one of the really interesting things, and this is something that Sarah was pointing to a little while ago, I mean, we all know what a tough year 2020 was, and things around the world in the investment world almost closed down from March to June. There was very little happening. But then a lot more people became aware that we really need to get serious about investing in preserving and improving nature and ecological assets that we've degraded by our industrial and agricultural use. And we really became aware of preserving our health. So suddenly we found that people were issuing, bond raisings and fundraisings into the market, and they were looking for maybe $100 million, $200 million. And most of them actually were up to 40 times oversubscribed. So if they were looking for $100 million of investment from institutional investors, they were being offered $4 billion. It seems crazy, but there's so much.
And these were green bonds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because these
in the sustainable markets, this was not the regular markets.
That's right. Yeah. They were becoming so oversold that people didn't. They actually listed their bonds for a profit, and that paid the interest for the whole bond. It's quite amazing structures that were happening, and it's because there's a wider appreciation and there's a greater demand from companies and from individuals who are investing to say, well, I don't just want to invest in something. I definitely don't want to invest in something that's going to be destructive to the planet. I actually want to put my money, put my energy into something where the earth is protected and improved, and I get a return, and I've got an asset. That's very rewarding for institutional investors and for people generally, and for bigger corporations who have to satisfy their customers and their stakeholders that they're doing the right thing. So it is actually a way of bringing everyone aligned into a more positive system. To me, that's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit in a few practical things and actually explain where we are. Because I know that some people, well, we're talking about it very differently from how we did before, but it's an extension of a theme that I've already introduced in October. And it's important to know where we actually are. So we are very close now to, in fact, in the next few days, probably, to establish the first mutual company, which is the mutual is the structure. It's a structure where everybody who's part of it owns a share in it. So it can't be controlled by top-down shareholders or investors. No one can control it because the members own it. Every single member has their own share. And people who improve their health and well-being, for example, are members. The first one is called Love to be Fit. And it's about improving health and well-being through fitness, specifically at least to begin with, through taking part in sports activities or mass participation sports activities, especially where they're organised by clubs or mass participation sports events. The reason for needing the clubs and the event organisers is because they can verify the activity. So that one is literally about to form. We have a director who can basically take us into the whole of really all of Sports Australia. He's extremely well connected, and then potentially out into the rest of the world through another client of mine who knows just about everybody who's anybody in sport. So we're expecting to be able to go to many thousands of people directly as soon as we start. There's also a Love to Eco Food Mutual, which is in formation with a group of organic farmers and people that Tim knows. That's very, very close to actually starting, and will create a way that farmers can move towards organic. It's called the eco food. Yeah, so it's basically produce food in more and more ecologically sustainable and valuable ways and be rewarded for doing that. One of the biggest problems for farmers is that it often costs them to turn organic. Once they're organic, they're okay financially, but they often can't go through the 3-year transition period because it's too expensive for them. So something like this can encourage farming to go organic because it's actually financially rewarded at a significant enough level that they'll say, oh, well, I'll do that. That's obviously a good decision because in the end, they need to make decisions that are related to money. Just to give you an example on the Love to Be Fit one, we're estimating that, let's say somebody participates in regular kind of sports through a whole year. That's probably worth in the region of 10% of a quality adjusted life year, which was that $50,000 number I mentioned. So we're probably talking around $5,000 a year of value that's created there. That the numbers will clarify themselves a little bit more. But so it's quite significant, the money that we're talking about. And that has to be shared between some different partners. But the person who actually puts in the effort gets a little more than 50% of that. So, we're talking about maybe $2,500 a year for keeping yourself healthy and fit just through the exercise portion of it. Tim, you want to say something?
I just might say there too. One of the fascinating things about this is that we're able to go back and look at what you've already done. Because everyone recognises that if you've looked after your health and well-being for some years, you're probably enjoying the benefits of a healthier life and healthier body now, compared to if you were just starting now. So same with ecological work. In most cases with, say, carbon sequestration or something, you can only get paid from the time you actually sign up to the formal program. You don't get any credit for what you've done in the past. So what Sarah's saying is right. On an each year going forward basis, you get paid. But on that first year, people are able to make a claim. And as long as we can verify that claim about what people have done in the past and what's in the Love to Be Fit project, it's, have you been to the gym? Have you been playing sports? Have you been participating in sporting events? Even if it's, fun runs, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be an elite athlete. Anything you've done and performed well, or if you've been using a wearable that measures what how much time you're spending walking, all of those things we can look backwards to look at, and that allows us to give you quite a lot more than $2,500 in the first year. It can be a really significant amount. And the other thing to remember, and the beautiful thing about Love To is this system underlying it can be applied to many, many applications. So we're starting with health and fitness. We're starting with ecology for farmers. But we're able to work with ecology in developing nations. We're able to work with people who volunteer. We've even talked a bit, Sarah and I, about, love to be a mum, love to be a dad, love to be a parent, and the value that we create for ourselves and our families by really dedicating ourselves to looking after our family well. So it's very adaptable in terms of what can be done. And you're not limited to being in only one of them. So, if there's a number of ways that you structure your life to do more and more for the world and for yourself and your family, that becomes more and more financially productive for you. So I just wanted to make that point that there's a lot of flexibility, and the historic value is quite significant. So getting involved in an early stage and seeing, what value can be ascribed to the effort that you've put in so far could be a really substantial financial win, and at no cost. We're not asking anyone for a single dollar, to join the mutual or to make a claim or anything else. Your asset that you bring to the mutual is the work you've already done, and it's the investors that buy that bring the money back into the system.
Yeah. Thank you. So we could talk about this all day, and I think the questions you could ask all day. The plan is for the fitness one will start in Australia, but that's just to develop up the model so that we can take it to other countries. It will also work in developing nations, which is very exciting because it allows people to make an income where they're not able to at the moment. And there is a project that has started in Ethiopia. It's got a little bit held up by some civil unrest, but enabling farmers in Ethiopia to be recognized for the land regeneration that they've done over 30 years, which will enable them to have an asset that can help to prevent the devastating effects of famine and locust plagues and things like that. So this is really serious stuff that we're talking about that makes a hugely significant difference also in making the world a bit more equal, so that it's not just the Western nations that take everything and leave other nations really poor. Now, there's one thing that we need some help with, okay? And so I would like to ask you to just listen to this and see if this appeals to you. We're in the just such close stages of getting the first ones launched that well, at least the mutual should be formed this week of the first one, and then the next one will follow quickly after, and there are others that will come. We are looking for a fairly small amount of angel investor funding, which will take whatever time it takes, probably not very long, but it takes a little bit of time. We are in the process now of working with a very significant person in Australia. He's been the treasurer of one of the states of Australia, is that right, Tim? And also of a bank. So he's like a real treasurer, banking, been a banker all the time. He's working with us to finalize our systems to take them to a financial partner, because we need a big bank to partner with us financially. But he's understood enough of it to know that this is doable. And that's very important because sometimes these kinds of schemes are not doable, but he has seen that this is doable. The thinking has been done, and so we've got probably a month or two's work to do on that. And what I want to do is a kind of funny little combination of offering you a course, but we're thinking of it also as a kind of crowdfunding opportunity to put just a little bit of money in to help us go to that next step. And I'll explain how this works. So what I would like to do is run a 4-week course. It's called Future Human. It's actually how to think and act like a future human. So we're moving towards a win-win-win world. And we're going to look at how to think and act around money, around health and well-being, around something that I've forgotten, and also we talked about ecosystems, like real ecosystem thinking, and also about how to be on your leading edge, because this is very leading edge stuff, and we need to each be able to find our own leading edge to kind of hang in here and get this all working. So that's a 4-week course that's actually going to start in 2 weeks from today. It'll be at exactly the same time as today's session. I'm going to lead that. Tim will also come and help out and do the bits that he's really expert in. And we're going to start to look at how do we actually do this? How do we need to think and act? And what do we need to do in our life so that we are leading, we're in the vanguard of this movement of actually creating and shaping not only the economy, but this way of doing and being things. Again, clearly it comes out of my book, Love Money, Money Loves You, all the work that Tim and I have done and the work I've done with so many clients. How do we put this into action? How do we think and act like a future human so that we're actually taking the steps day by day? And the way I want to do it is, rather than just, normally I just offer a course and you pay the money and I get the money and that's it, that's perfectly normal. But what we're going to do is we're going to give you several different prices. You can choose whichever price you want for the course. You'll get the same course. And the money will be applied specifically to getting Love to over the line for the last step. I'll tell you the truth, we're actually waiting for a refund from the Australian government that has got held up rather for some of the research and development. And so that's just kind of left this little gap. And so the money that gets paid for the course is actually for getting the final things, lawyers and people we have to pay to get all of that going. So the course will be worth more than any of the prices, but I see it as a kind of crowdfunding at the same time. All right, so the way we've done it is you can pay $100 for this course, US dollars. That's not very expensive anyway. You can pay $50 for the course, or you can pay $25 for the course. I would invite you, if you can pay $100 for it, please do. If you can't, but you'd like to be part of it, then pay whatever of those you can do. Just make it affordable for yourself, okay? Because it's interesting, the principle of the mutual is no one will have to pay to be in the mutual. No one will have to pay to get that money that we were talking about, the reward for the effort that you've put in. But we still have to pay to get there. And so that's why we decided to invite the people who I know best and are closest in my world. And I've connected with some of you for a very, very long time. So I'm going to give you a link and just invite you, like, I think this is going to be a very cool course. I have to say, when I'm thinking about it, just the idea of, you know, what does it mean to be a future human? How do we bring the future into now? That's because that's how we create the future. If we constantly think, oh my God, what's wrong with the world? How can we change it? We keep on with what's wrong with the world. But if we say, let's do the future now, I can teach you how to do that. That's how Love To has been developed. When everybody said, we don't understand you, what are you talking about? You can't do that. We said, we can. I think I'm just about to send this to the wrong person. Hold on a moment. We can do it. And from the day that we started to talk about it, I felt the energy of Love To. And I just lived in that energy of we are shaping this world where people can do what they love to do and be rewarded for it. So there is a link. And I know that some people will have to drop off now, but I just managed to get in the request before the hour was up. So yes, it's just simply an invitation. If you would like to help us get over the line, or if you'd like to learn how to think and act like a future human, you can pay 100 or 50 or 25. And if you would like to pay some more just because you're enthusiastic about it, you're welcome to buy multiple courses. We've set it up so you could pay 200 just by choosing 2 times 100. If you want to invite somebody into the course for your other 100, or if you'd like us to offer a scholarship to somebody for your other 100, just send me an email and say, Sarah, I paid 200 or I paid 500. Please give 4 people a place who can't afford it. Or can I invite 4 of my friends to come and do this course? Okay, so we just share the goodness. Thank you. For those of you who have contacts and connections and all of that, please send me an email, sarah@sarahmccrum.com. That's really cool, because as we move into the action stage now, then of course we're going to share the enthusiasm with everybody and ask you to bring people into it. It'll be a very different phase from where we've been, which has been very kind of heads down. Let's get this worked out. I think that's the core stuff. And now we are here in case you have some questions, and I expect that you probably do. So, yeah, if the link, I put the link in, it's sarahmccrum.com/future-human. I will send the link out to everybody. I will show you now, just before we take the questions, I'll actually show you what it looks like. It's so much easier so that you know exactly. Oh, go away. You're just seeing all my notes for this talk. All right. So when you hit that link, you'll come to this. Sarah McCrum invites you to think and act like a future human and move towards a win-win-win society. I tell you, making these pages has been such a pleasure for me. I worked for 10 years listening to children, just listening to them talking. And suddenly I have this excuse to use all these beautiful pictures of children they look like they're flying towards the future and becoming superhuman, like developing their superpowers at the same time. It's very close to my heart. So this is an invitation to join Future Human, which is the 4-week course. So you can either say you're paying for that. Crowdfunding with a difference. Is it crowdfunding or are you buying a course? It's both, okay? It's just the point is that the purpose is to support Love To at this moment, just to get this last stage. And when you get to the bottom, there's a regular form. You can select 100, 50 or 25. And whichever one you select, let's say I choose 100 here, I can choose one of them, but I can actually make that go up if I want to. You can pay whatever you want, but that's the crowdfunding side of it as well. Do feel free if you'd like to. And then you just complete your order in the regular kind of way, and you will receive an email in the regular kind of way, and the course will start in 2 weeks from today, same time. Okay. So I have to correct the dates. Has next week as the starting date. I'm sorry. Okay, it starts in 2 weeks. Thank you, Catalina. What if you can't afford to pay? If you can't afford to pay, so first thing, I'm going to teach you something. If you really, really want to do something, and you just say, I really want to do it, and don't say, I can't afford to pay. My book, Love Money, Money Loves You, taught me, and I've proven this thousands and thousands of times, you just say, I really want to do that thing. And then zip it. Don't say, I can't afford to pay, because that's sending an instruction to money to make sure that you have no money. You might be surprised. There are ways that, there are many ways that things can happen. If you really, really want to be in it and you can't afford to pay, send a message to support@sarahmccrum.com and we'll keep a list. And what I hope is that there will be some people here who will support some scholarships by paying perhaps a bit more. And then we will offer those scholarships to the people who ask for it. But please don't be relying on free stuff. Okay? The whole principle of Love To is that we reward your effort, your beneficial effort. Okay? So one part of beneficial effort is also learning how to genuinely ask for what you want and receive it. Okay? I have to educate about money all the time because it's my thing. And it's really possible that you might actually get the $25 rather than the scholarship. How much work or time is involved? It's 4 weeks, 4 hours, basically. We're keeping this very, very simple, very clean. It'll give you plenty to think about, but that's in your own time. Okay, so any questions? No, not 4 hours a week. 4 weeks, 1 hour each week. The way that I work, some of you will be familiar with this, is that I don't give you loads of homework to do. We do it in the session. You will go away from this, although I've just been talking, you will go away from this today a different person from who you were when you came. The work is done, okay? But we've got some more stuff to do. Today's work is done, but there's some stuff that we need to do around these topics, around ecosystems and thinking about money and thinking about leading in your own life and thinking about health and well-being. That's stuff where it's not just thinking, it's about how you are from the inside. That's what I'm going to be sharing with you. It's like how you do this in this future human way rather than the old-fashioned way. Okay? The recording of this will be shared with you later. Yes, you can pay for somebody you don't know. You're welcome to raise. Oh, here I am. I'm saying, have you got questions? And I'm not even looking at who's raised their hand. All right, Linda Shaw.
Hi there. Thank you, Sarah. One question that popped into our heads was, when an investor invests, what are they expecting to get in return?
Well, I'll give you the simple answer, first of all, and then Tim might expand on it. First of all, the investors are big institutional investors, and they have a mandate to invest in essentially quality of life, improving quality of life. So they actually have to do it. It also makes them look good. They have to invest in something. It makes them look good, you know, it's social responsibility and all of that. They get a dividend every year. We have a dividend fund that gets reinvested to create more goodness on the whole, more value, and they get a dividend from that. Tim, do you want to add to that?
That's pretty much exactly it. So when they buy, technically it's called a mutual capital instrument, but effectively it's a share, like any other share in a company on a stock exchange. It's just that it's issued by a mutual structure company instead of a normal company with a handful of shareholders. And the beautiful thing about a mutual capital instrument is the investors don't get to vote on them, on the important parts of managing the mutual. So the people that are doing the effort still remain in control of the organization, even when there's investors. So in that way, it's quite different from a normal company. But they have an asset, and the asset will be listed on a stock exchange. So they might buy a share like anyone else buys a share because it could go up. And also they'll get a dividend. Now we're planning on each share being $100 when it's issued, and those investors will buy those shares at $100 each, and they will know that they will get a $2 dividend on each share every year. The dividend comes from us. Everyone in the mutual contributes equally to a dividend fund, and that fund is managed to create a pool of cash that we can invest into things that the members really care about, that create more opportunities, more shares, more cash, and that allows us to pay the dividend on all of the instruments, all the securities we've issued, and then the excess of that goes back to the members as well. So the members get the shares for doing their normal work. Those shares carry a dividend as well. So everyone, even if you don't sell your shares, you'll still get a dividend every year. And if there's an extremely good result in the dividend fund, there's an additional return from that. So investors are getting a share like they would buy normally. They can sell that share to anyone else, and the new owner will also get the dividend. Well, they'll get the dividend instead of the original owner. So just like a normal share, you can buy it and sell it on a stock exchange. Whoever owns it gets a dividend and owns the asset. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, that's great. So these would be organizations that have a triple bottom line foundation?
Pretty much, Linda. Yeah, you might have heard of, and it's definitely worth Googling if you haven't, but the UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. So there are 17 goals that the business and investment and sort of global community has put together that these are goals that want to be achieved by 2050. And you'll see they're quite large. There's whole lots of sub-goals, but the 17 goals are things like life on land, life on the earth, quality work, education for people, gender equality. They're the sort of things that these institutions actually have a mandate to invest in, things that help to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So those institutions have our money, our pension funds, our superannuation funds. They also have, those big banks have corporate organizations that have a lot of money. You think about, companies like Apple that turn over so much, have billions and billions of dollars in assets and in cash. What do they do with it? And many of them are obliged to invest, their boards and their shareholders oblige them to invest in good things that represent, that support their corporate image, I guess. So there's a lot of institutions and a lot of companies, corporates, that are wanting to invest in these things to show their shareholders that they're doing the right thing and they're good corporate citizens. And so we need to provide them something they can invest in. It's as simple as that. And they can't get to the grassroots like we can. We are the grassroots. And a lot of the problem, a reason that this hasn't gone very far, is most of those big corporations and institutions look for corporations and institutions just like them to invest in, but they don't have a way to get the money to the ground. Whereas, where we're starting with the people and aggregating the energy and the power of the people, we can have that scale without it being a corporation.
Yeah, thanks. Fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. It's been a really fascinating journey to explore how to do this. It's 4 years, and we've spent, in the last year, we spent 2.6 million Aussie dollars on R&D with some of the really seriously brilliant people in the world. Some amazing conversations have happened, I can assure you, over the last couple of years. And what a journey it's been. Sarah and I have really been on the roller coaster with this to try and make it happen, because it's quite new, and just to kind of explain it to people has been an amazing challenge. But wow, what else would you be doing? It's fabulous,
Yeah,
so
really innovative thing.
Yeah, and it's, the funny thing is, it's quite logical. Without expanding on it too much, we've been saying to farmers, well, you produce beef or dairy or wheat or pineapples, and that's a farm product. Great. You're also producing an ecological outcome, and that's another product that you're producing. So if you start to manage your farms, you're actually producing more products that you can sell, and one of them is an ecological product. That makes a lot of sense. And also then you can start to say, I'm actually making more money out of producing an ecological product than I would if I chopped down trees to put beef cattle on it, right?
Yeah.
You can actually start to differentiate and go, being ecological is more profitable. That makes a huge difference. So same in health and well-being and fitness. We can create partnerships between people in the mutual, and companies would normally sell us stuff, Instead, they give us stuff and we share the outcome of working together to improve health. Just changes the game, because people that can't participate because they don't have the money, now they can. It's really significant. We're going to have whole new economies within this structure, and you can tell I'm a bit excited about it, but the ways that it will open up will be really, really interesting. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, you can see a huge shift potential to, my husband was just saying, saving the world,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And verifiably, not just lip service, not just painting it all green and hoping that no one looks behind the surface. We can verify all of this in real time.
Yes.
Again, when people issue green bonds, they do things like saying, well, we want to raise $100 million. We promise we're going to do the right thing with it. We promise we're going to plant trees. We're going to be great. It's all going to be terrific in the future. And oftentimes it isn't, and that's what causes a problem for investors. If, there's corruption, or if there's drought or fire or something, things happen. What we're doing here is measuring what's already been done and equitizing what's already been done. So there's no implementation risk at all for these investors. That's the only thing that I can think of in the world that's like that.
Yeah.
We're actually selling them the product of the work that's already completed, and then that money goes back into doing more of it. So it's very interesting to sort of change the model and actually reward people for what's been done. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that audit trail.
It's very important. Yeah. It's got to be real.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Linda.
There's a question here from Helen, and I'm not quite sure if it's I can't quite understand it, but I think the underlying question is very clear. It says, will we know the sticker and exchange, I'm not sure what that means, to invest in the mutual as individual investors? So Tim, can you explain about how a mutual works?
Absolutely, yeah. So you'll be a member of the mutual and you'll be generating your own shares by your work, by your effort. If you had investment funds in a pension fund or a superannuation fund or anything else, you will be able to buy those shares just by buying them through a broker on a stock exchange. It's just the same as buying any other share. If you want to participate at the level of when they're issued, usually that would be limited to fairly sophisticated or large scale investors, that actually kind of buy these assets wholesale. But I think, what we're looking to do is there's some securities regulations that we have to comply with. So, in terms of making offers to institutions, there's a different level of rules around making an offer to retail investors. But subject to all of that, we'll be able to find ways to make these shares available to regular people. In fact, one of the really interesting things is that we call our shares that we're issuing life shares. So we've trademarked that name of life shares. And life shares will be issued, the same structure of share will be issued by all the different mutuals. So they'll all have $100 face value. They'll all pay a $2 dividend every year. They'll all be from the same mutual structure. So they're very comparable. Really, if all of that is standard, then the differences will be what projects are people doing in these mutuals, and some will be for ecology in developing nations, and some will be for volunteer work, and some will be for sport, and some will be for renewable energy, and some will be for maybe even new transportation systems and how to manage waste for municipal systems. So all these things that generate value, and people will be able to create a portfolio of life shares that represent a whole variety of their interests, and actually have real investments. These things, $2 on $100 shares, 2% per annum. That's a lot better than most people are getting in a bank deposit at the moment. And the shares have the opportunity to increase. We might well see that they increase in value because there's a demand for them. If there's a demand for Bitcoin, there's certainly a demand for something more substantial that's backed by the assets that are necessary for life. So I think we'll see some really interesting things as it goes.
Thank you very much. What about Kira?
My question is quite practical. Say I choose to sponsor somebody, and do I need to be $100? Only $100 can sponsor somebody, or I can sponsor 4 people by paying $25 for each?
That's a great question.
I'm going to leave that one with you, Kira.
Yes.
I'm just going to literally let you make that choice. There's a free world. I've set the rules. I'll play by the rules. You make a choice how you want to do it.
Okay, cool. Well, one more comment I want to say is that, in typical systems, we always punish people who are doing the right thing. All the regulations, all the policies are for those people who break the rules. So it is really exciting. I'm just so blessed to be with you, Sarah and Jim. All the best. So I'm so excited.
I appreciate that, Kira.
And thank you for wanting to sponsor some people. That's great.
But I actually mentioned to Sarah, I'll just briefly say here, but we're talking about what sort of mutuals there might be, and I just had the idea pop into my mind a little while ago. What if we created the mutual for future makers? The mutual for future humans who are founded by the people who do this course. We could have our own mutual of people who really want to create value by teaching more people about how to create value. It'd be quite fun, wouldn't it?
That would be amazing.
Just something to think about. But this is the energy of it. This is what can we do as a team that supports one another to create the world we want, and make that part of the living that we make. Literally, we make our living by doing the things that we care about. And to me, that's pretty exciting to create a mutual of the founders of this would be cool. Anyway, just something to think about.
I love that.
We could definitely make a lot more than it would cost. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's got that kind of energy in it. I don't know how we'd verify it, but I love it. Well, I think verification would be fine, actually.
Yeah, we got that.
Very cool. Yeah. Eleanor.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you both so much. I just, an idea that came to me as you were speaking was the ecological value of the other than human. And just to give one example, there's forest elephants, for example, every year are responsible for maintaining the forest in a way that gives the forest enhanced value and also sequesters carbon. Is it possible to have a way of actually including the, I would say, the other citizens of the biosphere who are enhancing the environment all the time?
Absolutely. One of the fundamental things that we're working with, Eleanor, is the idea that humans are part of the ecosystem. And we can see ourselves in it as part of it in a positive way, or we can see it as we've seen ourselves in the last few hundred years as kind of, taking what we can take and not worrying too much about what we give back. And I think that's the idea of the ecological projects that we're developing in Love To are all about looking at the whole thing holistically. Even where we don't talk about carbon credits because it's so narrow. It's only a single measure that's supposed to represent more, and it actually doesn't. It's such a narrow focus. So we're looking at all of the ways that people are involved in improving the ecology, the ecological system. So across soil quality, water quality, and protecting streams and rivers and estuaries and oceans and things like the lagoon around the Great Barrier Reef, the air quality and the availability of fresh air, which is obviously related to trees and photosynthesis and everything as well, and shade and cooling effects. Then there's also natural flora and fauna. So native flora and fauna is an important part of what we measure. It's like 20% of what's measured. And the fifth part of it is, it's a terrible name, but other. So the other is the local important ecological factors. So in the coastline of Queensland, it might be the Great Barrier Reef. In Ethiopia, it might be the health of the Blue Nile. Each place has its own specific relevant ecological systems, and that makes up about 20% of the measurement we take, the impact that it has on local importance, local conditions for local people and local biosphere. So it's absolutely fully inclusive. I think that's very important that we see ourselves as part with the animals and the plants that we all make it up together, and we actually have to appreciate the natural system, and the balance of it is beautiful. And yeah, that's the point I think that Sarah taught me right 4 years ago, was we aren't here to come with hammer and nails and fix the world. We're here to work within the structure of nature and participate with it, and all get healthier and recover together, all be better and treat life better, and life will treat us better. It's pretty simple.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it was very poignant listening to you, because I mean, about a decade ago, one of the most pristine areas of rainforest in Venezuela, the Venezuelan government said, well, there's oil there, but if we can get enough funding from the international community, then we will protect this rainforest, and we're going to leave the oil in the ground. And it didn't happen because this kind of thinking, which, you know, we're exploring here, hadn't arrived.
Yeah, exactly.
There wasn't a mechanism, there wasn't a model. Yeah.
Well, part of what we're exploring here too is things like the Brazilian government deciding to cut down more of the Amazonian rainforest to turn it into cattle farming. But what Sarah was saying is that the problem has been that a tree is only valued when it's planks at the moment. But if we value the value of a tree standing and living, and its photosynthesis and its habitat and the way that it holds the soil in place and creates mulch and clean air and all, you know, filters the water, all of that, the value of it standing is far more to life than the value of it dead. Yeah. And while it's alive, it also produces seeds. It produces more, hundreds folds more. So this is these are the things we're trying to explore, and the reason for using this is a bridge between what we'd like to see and the money system that we have, like the financial services system we have at the moment, the investing system we have at the moment. It's a way to steer that massive machine towards producing something much, much better than it's produced so far.
Wonderful.
And
so inspiring.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your help on that. Thanks, Eleanor.
We've got a couple more questions here. Gail.
Yeah, thanks. And thank you both for following up on that. I've been wondering what's going on with this, because I have an idea of some people that around the fitness thing, the Aura Ring people that make the fitness the wearable.
Tim's been looking at the Aura Ring. Have you got one, Gail?
Really interested in
that.
I
do have one. And I'd like to contact them, you know, to help them, because I think there's some of the software that needs to be, you know, upped a little bit. Anyway, but I want to mention this project, and I get the gist of it, and I feel excited about it. But I mean, I know nothing about, you know, finances and mutuals and so forth. And when I try to tell people, they go, so who's paying, right? Where does the money come from? And then I'm just kind of, how can I? Oh, and another thing is Beachbody in California. That's an online fitness thing, and I heard Lee Harris had an interview with the CEO, and he sounds like a guy that would jump right on this. So it would be great if you had like some easy go-to things that, you know, we could access and say, hey, check this out. This is something new, and you might be interested.
Gail, that's one of the things we know we need to do that, and that's one of the things that doing stuff like this kind of mini crowdfunding helps us to do, is to put together, like, we've got the material, and we're also practicing in a way, like me talking here like this is also me practicing talking about this in public rather than just with people one-on-one. It's a very different thing, and what do people understand and what do they not understand? So yes, we absolutely know that it's important to have that, you know, as a website probably, and other packaged information. So that's one of the things that will
cool. I'm on board. Great. Wonderful.
Thanks,
funding will help to finance that, just to get to that next stage.
Super.
And you're welcome to invite them to the course. We'll explain it to them in full. No problem. Great opportunity.
Yeah.
Anyone, if you know anyone who you think would love this course, they don't have to have worked with me or be on my list or something. You can share this video with them. That's obviously the simplest, easiest thing to do probably. Or you can just share the page and say, hey, come and do this with me. Or you can sponsor them to do it. Share it. I feel, actually, even as I read the comments, I just feel this incredible shareability energy around this, because it's bringing good to everybody who touches it, you know, and not taking things from people. It's a very generative, very expansive system. So yeah, we will get there, Irene, in terms of website stuff and knowing how to answer the question, Gail. I can tell you the simple answer is, and this is the only thing that people really get when I say it, is that those large institutions are mandated to invest in things that are either in relation to the SDGs, the Sustainable Development, or fundamentally it's that they're mandated to invest in the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah, they are.
They have to do it, and they're failing to do it at the moment because there are not the scalable projects to do it. So that is a very, very strong demand as a result of that. Okay. I think we have Nancy and Emma, or Nancy or Emma. I'm not sure which one it is. Oh,
yeah, this is Nancy, and thank you. I'm so on board with this. I've been waiting for this for most of my life, and so happy that I didn't have to produce it myself. So thank you. Thank you for being leaders in this. But my question is a really simple one, and it's just a disconnect, I guess. How does where does the funds for the dividends come from? Because I get all the other pieces of it, but I just don't know how that connects.
Sure. Okay. So part of my experience has been in the venture capital world, and we've, Love To's actually started its own venture capital fund. So we understand how to identify great opportunities and how to invest in things. So it might be, well, good example, Gail. The reason I was contacting or interested in the Aura people is when we verify the health and the sporting and the fitness things that people are doing, we can take the records that their club or their sporting association or their event organizer has for them participating. And that gives sort of a medium level of verification. So at that level, people are allowed to sell 60%, and all of us are allowed to sell 60% of the shares that are generated, because the data is okay, but it's not amazing. We can upgrade that to them being able to sell 90% if they're wearing a wearable, and we're getting live data from that wearable. So we can see that there's a huge increase in the value of what they can sell by just them having a wearable. Now, if a wearable costs $400, the dividend fund could invest in giving members wearables and share a portion of the extra money that's generated from that. So the dividend fund can make clever investments that help all the members make more money and enhance the opportunity to create new clubs, new ways to stay healthy and well, new events, or whole new nations. We had one suggestion where there's loads and loads of kids that play soccer in Indonesia, but there are no club structures. So without club structures, they can't participate fully, and they haven't got soccer grounds, and there's no one to kind of organize it. We can invest really simply in organizing clubs, even if they're just organized through, there's a couple of different new sports related social media businesses that are getting going, and we could organize clubs through them, which would be a really relatively small investment, but it would generate a lot of these life shares, which part of which would be owned by the fund. That would be sold just like all the other shares, creates money into the fund, which we use to pay the dividend first, and then we pay the rest of the members. So it's really a process of nature. It's like you plant a seed, it grows a plant, 100 seeds are produced. It's the same. Everything is natural systems, it's very simple.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks for that. Great question.
Well, thank you. I think we've come to the end of the questions for today, and it feels like the energy is strong and
really good,
very kind of rich and very real. It's a big development since October when I spoke about this last time. I measure things always in terms of energy. So please, if you're inspired by this, come and join the course at whatever price feels right for you. Sponsor somebody if you're feeling rich, and we're gonna move on to the next stage. That will be in 2 weeks' time. So thank you for joining us. It's amazing to talk with lots of people and feel that just the absolute, the kind of aliveness of doing something that's aligned with life, and to feel how there's such a natural, expansive energy around that. We automatically want to bring more people in because there's none of that kind of uncomfortable feeling around it. So it's such a pleasure to be experiencing this, and you can see that there's going to be a lot more to come in the world of Love To. So see you very soon, and thank you. And thank you, Tim, for your total brilliance.
Thank you for listening. At least it's understandable now. It's taken me 4 years to work with you, Sarah, to get it out there to make it work. Yeah.
Definitely an inspired combination of skills here.
Absolutely. And thanks
All
everyone
right.
for staying on. It's been a great meeting. I'm much heartened by all the support. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's terrific to be working with you. Much love. Appreciate it.